Welcome to this edition of Jana Brock's Bunny Talks. I'm Jana, and today I want to answer a commonly asked question that I get asking me how I deal with so many rabbits inside of a house with close living quarters. In other words, how do I accommodate when I have 10, 12, 14 bunnies, and that's when I'm bunny sitting. I don't have that many of my own regularly that I have adopted out of all the rescues we've taken in, but I do regularly have between 9 and 10 rabbits on any given day. Sometimes we have 14. And when you live in a 3-bedroom house or 2-bedroom house, or those of you who live in an apartment, you have to utilize your space very well. And so I have a few ideas for you, even those of you who only have a bonded pair of rabbits, whether you're living inside of a large house or 2-bedroom apartment or whatever your situation is. Most of us do have limited space just because a lot of our space in our home is, of course, dedicated to our living space. And so I wanted to show you, I have some temporary enclosures set up because I just moved into a new 3-bedroom place and there's a lot of remodeling going on in here. And of course, we have to hang a lot of construction drapes to protect the bunnies from dust or floor treatments or paint or whatever's going on room by room by room. So I've had to move rabbit enclosures around several times, which those of you who have rabbits know that day-to-day cleaning is a chore, but moving rabbits, that's really something, that takes a lot of energy, takes several hours to even move one set of bunnies to another room and get them set up. So let me show you what I have done. Now here you can see that I have in one of the bedrooms it's a very small bedroom, so I have room for 4 bunnies. That's 2 bonded pairs. And there are 5 bunnies because the littles have Roll and Thumper Tiny with them. So there are 3 little tiny bunnies in this enclosure. And then on the other part of the room, I have Jessie and Oreo. And Jessie, of course, is a Flemish giant. He doesn't look like a Flemish giant, but I assure you he was rescued from backyard Flemish giant breeders. His brother is Hall. We have Hall and Oates for those of you who are familiar with our other bunnies. And Hall, his brother who came out of the same litter, looks exactly like a Flemish giant. So somewhere back in their lineage, there's checkerboard giant or something, because both Hall and Jessie are bigger than typical Flemish giants. They both weigh about 17.5 pounds. But Jessie, as you can see, took on the coloring of not your typical Flemish giant breed. Anyway, that's a little off topic, but getting back on topic, I want to show you the enclosure that I do over and over and over for all the bunnies, and I do it the same way. What I do instead, a lot of people just use the floor space, and you might figure you have 4 or 5 feet or 6 feet or 10 feet or whatever. And this is for people who don't allow their bunnies to free roam. I do not let my bunnies free roam. That's for their safety and also to preserve the home, of course. But when you have 10 bunnies and they're not all bonded together, there is absolutely no way to have a free roam situation, especially when you're taking in bunnies to bunny sit, or I take in bunnies for post-surgery care. I take care of bunnies who are going through GI stasis to get them out of that safely. There's all these reasons why I've had bunnies at different times. And so free roam is not ever an option in my home, except in the room they're living in. Like in the living room, I might have 2 bunnies that always have that territory, and I don't move any other bunnies. That's a different situation. And of course, then any room that is a free roam area for a bonded pair of bunnies is completely bunny proofed. Cords covered. You should never let your bunnies have access to cords. There's adequate cord covering, plus you can sew material together and cover cords. There's just all kinds of different ideas. I have a whole section in my book, Bunny Conversations, The Entertaining Dialogue of Pet Rabbits by Jana Brock, that's available on Amazon. And I'll leave a link in the description box below for those of you who have not bought my book. And I want to say a word about Bunny Conversations. Those of you who are authors, and I've been an author, a technical writer professionally for many, many years, decades actually. And because of the new way that book publishing is set up to be more of a free market rather than your book's accepted by a publisher, it gets published. A lot of times the reviews work differently. And for those of you who have read Bunny Conversations and you have an Amazon account, if you could go on and leave me a review on my Bunny Conversations book, it would really help me a lot. Had reviews be taken down. I'm not sure what the problem is with that. I've talked to my publisher about it, and it happens to many different authors. But when you go from reviews down to 4 or 5. I don't even know how that happens, but it helps me greatly if people could leave, good reviews on my book, Bunny Conversations. A lot of time and research went into that, and certainly that's not, as any author knows, unless you're one of the top bestseller lists for authors in this country, you certainly don't make any money. In fact, it's almost a cost to distribute those books, which is why I just have Amazon sell them, because I really don't make any money on those. But back on topic, the enclosures, however much space you have, the number one thing is make sure that space is bunny proofed. I always put gates up against the walls, because sheetrock paneling, it doesn't matter what you have, that rabbit can tilt his head back and make holes in the walls. You wouldn't think they'd be able to do that, but they can. And we learned that lesson early on years ago with a rabbit that liked to eat sheetrock, and we didn't notice it at first, but then we started seeing all these little teeth scrapes up against the sheetrock. And so make sure your walls and your floors are covered. Not only can a rabbit ruin your home in a short amount of time, but the materials he's ingesting are not good for him or her. That's the first thing. The second thing is, utilizing a small space you can double the space a rabbit has quite easily by lifting the crate, the primary enclosure, up off the floor and making an under, like a first story. Make sure, of course, the crate is stabilized, very solid, so when he or she runs up and down the ramp to get up to the second story, you can't get hurt, nothing can happen to him. Make sure the ramp is secured well. You can build a ramp really easily by putting a couple 2x4s together and wrapping them with some kind of material that's not slippery. Remember, they have furry paws. Rabbits do not have pads on their feet like cats and dogs do, so all they have is that slippery fur. So you need to do something that helps them grab when they walk up a ramp so that they can actually get up to the second floor. But you can double your space by doing that. The other thing that I do is put gates around the perimeter and build a yard, and I secure the door to the primary enclosure open. I secure it right to the gate so that they have always an open door, a top story, a bottom story, a top floor and a bottom floor, so to speak, like a little condo for your bunny. And then make a little yard out of gates, pet fencing. And here I'm using Iris 36-inch pet fencing. I don't get any money if you go buy Iris pet fencing. I don't do affiliate marketing. I just, my sole purpose for doing this work is to put out best care practices and credible information about rabbit care and handling, because there's so much misinformation and bad information circulating the internet today, and we want to be kind to animals and care for these animals as best we can. So when I recommend a material or a product, it's because I've tried a lot of products and I found that this works well for what I need. So Iris pet fencing works very well. It's easy to handle. It's durable. It holds up. You can use it outside or inside, outdoors or indoors. It doesn't weather. And so I build a little yard around each rabbit enclosure, and it gives them even more space. And then I drape a sheet or something over the top. And you wouldn't think that a rabbit could jump over a 36-inch pet gate, but I assure you the bigger rabbits can. And some rabbits, as you've seen on videos online once in a while, will even try to scale any kind of fencing and go right over the top of it. I've seen it happen several times. It's almost like climbing a wall. It's amazing what these animals can do if they want out. So by draping a sheet over and securing it to the corners and making sure there's no space where the rabbit can see out, it's not so much of a thing, can the rabbit get out if he really tries? Because sure they could. But if you have something over the top, for years and years and years I've used this technique. Never once has a rabbit even tried to get out when there's something covering the entire enclosure. And so that's why with the bigger rabbits, you can see that I have sheets laid over the top of all of their enclosures. There's a lot of space in there. They routinely run around. Of course, they still have outdoor play several times a day. In fact, I'm working on fencing the yard in this new place I moved into just for that very reason. The fence is going up as quickly as I can get it up so that I can resume getting them in their outdoor space several times a day, because we have lots of rabbits and that means lots of time outdoors. But in their primary enclosures, I have found it's very, very important that they have plenty of space to stretch all the way up with their paws, feet on the paws, back paws on the ground, and their front paws stretched up in the air, and they need to be able to lay down in the Superman pose. That means stretched, front paws stretched all the way out and back paws stretched all the way out in the other direction. And they need to be able to move around a little bit and run around. And so you can accomplish this by just sitting and thinking through and planning your space that you have. Again, if you have just a small space for your rabbit, you can easily just invest a little bit of time and money and build them sort of like a condo, build their space up if you don't have a lot of feet out. And it just gives them that little extra time to run, and plus they get exercise running up and down the ramp too. Make sure there are no sharp edges. Make sure I use a lot of zip ties, and I tuck the zip ties under where I cut them so that the rabbit cannot ever be pricked by them. Rabbit's skin is very sensitive. It tears very easy, and a lot of times you won't know if your rabbit's injured because they're such quiet animals. Rabbits are among the quietest animals in nature, as a matter of fact, because they are prey animals by nature. So I hope that answers the question of how I do my rabbit enclosures and indoors. And again, they're set up temporarily here, but when we get all the rooms done in this entire house the space that I've purchased, then we will have more permanent enclosures, but they'll look a lot like the pictures, the videos I'm showing you here. So build up if you don't have space to build out, and get fencing and make them a little yard in their primary enclosure. It increases their space. Even a few feet makes a huge difference to your pet rabbit. If you haven't done so already, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and please hit the subscribe button to this YouTube channel. As always, be kind to animals, and thank you for caring.